did, because they lie to us. Legacy media lies to us, and liberal media lies to us. I'm not saying the right is perfect or doesn't distort, but these are the kinds of things the left.
What do they all think the FBI has been doing for decades? What do they think they've been doing? The civil rights activists, the civil rights leaders, to Black Americans, Indigenous Americans, Hispanic Americans, to people who are socialists, to people who are leftists, to people who are communists, to people who are LGBTQ+. What has the FBI been doing? The left is not like, well, maybe that'll start soon. You know, we might as well get rid of Trump, because if we don't get rid of Trump, he'll make that happen to the rest of us.
Truly believes that if Trump...
Yeah, the FBI raided a black socialist group like a week before the Trump raid. One of the favorite things that Republicans love is why I left the left. That's one of their favorite things. It's basically made Dave Rubin's career. It's basically what Tim Pool has been edging people about for a very long time, even though he says that he's, of course, a milquetoast, fence-sitting centrist. But they love it. It's basically, well, you left the left because they're just too wacky. They're too zany, those leftists, you know? They're just way too out there. Yeah, I was a proud leftist for a long time, but then people said mean things to me, and now I'm here. That's basically my arc. What are you all about? So this is interesting.
You've been in politics way longer than I have. When did you start noticing this shift happening and the left losing their minds?
That's tough. I mean, I guess in the last 4 or 5 years, I would see positions that were out there on the left, and I would just dismiss them because I thought that's nonsense. No one I know really would believe that or do that. Like the first time I remember hearing the phrase dead white men, and that culture created by dead white men, or the phrase toxic masculinity. I would just think, well, that's ridiculous. Those are ridiculous concepts. You know, how can you possibly take seriously dismissing great works of art, masterpieces, our whole cultural heritage, because of the gender and race of the person who did it? That's racism and that's sexism, obviously.
So you didn't understand what either of those terms meant, clearly. Has there been anyone who's like, hey, by the way, you have to discount all the works of the Renaissance because the people there had some pretty yikesy beliefs by today's standards. So that's what we're about. When we say toxic masculinity, we mean that anything that was made by men in human history is toxic because it's masculine. That's what that means, I think. I don't know. I haven't actually looked up the definition, but that's what I think it is. Yeah.
And it's also self-destructive. And as a mom of a man and a stepmom of a 11-year-old future man, I really, object to this phrase toxic masculinity, or nonsensical statements about like male sexuality, heterosexuality being innately, abusive. Or
who says these things? Who have you been listening to? It kind of sounds like you've been listening to conservative media, because you have this weird straw person version of what you think the left is, or what these terms mean. Also, yeah, future human is a bizarre way, but okay. Anyways, it's not, if you're looking to understand those terms, it's not anti-masculine, it's not anti-men, it's also not anti-white people. If you recognize how there is things and elements that can make men act out in ways, and we reinforce these stereotypes, and they are destructive to men. Why aren't men allowed to talk about their feelings? Why aren't men allowed to be emotionally vulnerable? Why aren't men allowed to be empathetic? Why do they have to be strong, rigid, powerful protectors at all times? Like the start of Matt Walsh's movie, it's like, I give my kid a gun, that's all the support he needs. But my girl, that's a totally other story. I don't understand women at all. Like, you should be giving your son emotional support. You should be letting men know and reinforcing the idea that it's completely fine for them to be emotionally vulnerable. Because if we keep reinforcing these horrible stereotypes, we're getting very shitty results. We're indoctrinating people year after year after year with this shit. It's ultimately, toxic masculinity, it's anti-men. It's misandrist, if you want to be completely frank. If you continue to make men have to fall into these weird rigid stereotypes that there's only one way that a true man should be, like the very values that you should be giving to men are kind of the values that you should be giving to all genders. And it should not be a one size fits all. Like if there's one man who's not going to become the alpha Chad, who's not going to just have the rippling muscles and never cries and is just a stalwart protector and breadwinner, well, yeah, what does that have to do with people who aren't that, though? And what does it mean for people who aren't that when they have to try and meet these strange requirements of what it is to actually fit inside their gender? It's utterly bizarre. And as far as the white stuff, no, there's no one on the left who says that white people are inherently racist or that white people are bad. Like, white people, bad. The left. Like, it's again this weird straw man. If you recognize the way society is structured, if you recognize that other people and other groups face racial oppression, that's not saying white people evil. If you reinforce that racial oppression, then yes, you are contributing to the evil of racial oppression. You are part of that. But it doesn't mean that by definition every white person is bad. By definition every black person is good. That's not what they're saying at all. It's utterly bizarre.
Those are very damaging things to say to young men and boys, and they're also just destructive because it doesn't have to be that way. And it, where's love, and where's, this ideal of people finding each other? If they happen to be heterosexual, that shouldn't be any, less valid than any other sexuality that people want to be.
Oh my God, what the plight of
Clean up your room.
heterosexuals in society is that where we're at now? Like the poor heterosexuals, they don't have anywhere to turn in mass media to see a normalized version of their lifestyle. They're just consistently vilified. Yeah, every single day when they leave the house, it's like, what, are you a het? Oh God, gross. Yeah, no, that's really, really tough.
But I didn't take those seriously. But once, like, victory's so bad for us on the left, it's so toxic for us to win, because once we won, the presidency and the House, it was like a scary Marxist flood that was.
When did the left win the presidency?
Like latent and dormant, very much influenced by the CCP. I am convinced, and the World Economic Forum and other bad actors, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But this latent Marxist, Stalinist, aggressive, violent, coercive flood of nonsense just erupted, and now people on the left have no qualms about being as coercive and oppressive as they.
So I feel this is a person who calls themselves on the left and watches reads Breitbart every single day. And it's just like, oh, wow, I had no idea. Biden is a Stalinist. Man, he's not even a neo-Marxist anymore. He's a full-on Stalinist now. He's a Tinky Biden. Is that what the Dark Brandon arc truly was headed? Is that where it was going? We're headed towards Tinky Biden?
They want to be.
I like posting on. I got a lot of Occupy Wall Street people who follow me, and I like posting on. They'll post things like Trump has been raided by the feds. They'll laugh with smiley faces, and I'll be like, my response to them is always, I'm glad that you finally came around to supporting the feds and the federal government.
Right.
It took you a long time to realize they were the good guys.
Absolutely.
Wow, he's doing it in the opposite direction. He's flipping. He's Uno reverse carding the meme there. Yeah. Also, famously against state authority, Tim Pool going off there.
And then the response is like, well, I mean,
it's different.
Hey, keep cheering them on, man. Keep cheering them on, because we know where this goes.
When did they stop having like the Kantian imperative of it has to be consistent? If you don't want them to shut you down and censor you, you can't censor Project Veritas. You can't. Right. If you don't want them to come for your president, you can't go for their president. Like, why don't they see that?
Well, again, because she's got this weird straw person on the left that she feels is worth attacking. There's not much I can really say, because you're fighting like a balloon, right? It's not real. It's just like floating in the air nonsense. I think if you are talking to a leftist about the censorship on corporate tech, they will tell you the same thing time and time again. None of us have control in corporate tech. None of us. We don't have any say. Like, I'm not on the board. I'm not a CEO. I don't get to pick and choose when someone is censored or uncensored. We're all at the whims of these corporate dictatorships.
Would you say that they feel like they have the moral high ground? That
Totally.
The things that Project Veritas are doing, while they may be structurally similar, it's another form of censorship to oppress them, it's worth oppressing because they are promoting the wrong things.
Well, you're 1,000
With Project Veritas, I mean, again, this is such a weird hill to die on. Them and Alex Jones as the two, like, well, I mean, if they come after these journalists, they'll come after everyone. You're talking about scam artists. You're talking about people who lie for profit. You're talking about people in one end with Project Veritas who try to do catfishing and these weird setups that have also broken the law, by the way. But that's one end of it. And Alex Jones just lies to sell dick pills. That's it. I don't understand why anyone would be like, well, I mean, if they're censoring Project Veritas, what's next? Who will they come for?
1,000% right. And it's, again,
by the way, Project Veritas that just is in the middle of a lawsuit right now for their apparent wild hypocrisy when it comes to conservative values. Apparently, they're quite fond of giant orgies, quite fond of sexual harassment, quite fond of drugs. Like allegedly, also quite fond of circling up on a boat, dropping trow, and shitting, and then getting subordinates to clean up that shit. But it seems, according to the alleged accusations, these are all things that they're quite fond of.
Super scary because on the left, there's been this mission creep of language. Increasingly, you know what I'm going to say, right? Yeah, increasingly identifying thoughts as violence or speech as incitement.
Oh yeah, they're fond of porn too. Allegedly.
And January 6th was a big part of this. Like,
yeah, that was another thing. Apparently they just like play porn on their work computers. So like if you're walking by, you just see a dude and he's just like got porn on the computer at work. And I was like, that seems quite odd to me. Just not because I think it would distract you from work, which it probably would, but like, do you just sit there in like perpetual quasi horniness? Are you just like, yeah, that looks really good. Nice boobas. Oh, delicious. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, this is awkward, but yeah, I guess I better do some journalism. time to do a little journalism on the side.
Such that I think the left really feels like the people who disagree with them are so dangerous and all white supremacist, and you know, the things they think are so innately violent. Even
well, we
if
have
they
to
just
cut
disagree,
it off before the thought even gets there. We can't expose any of this material to anyone because they might indoctrinate someone else, aka get them to think about an issue in a way that we don't believe.
That is so rich coming from the crowd that is completely fine with banning books if they happen to feature anything LGBTQ. The same crowd that is totally fine with people banning fucking pride flags being in schools because that's indoctrination. Oh no, the kids might get the gay.
Absolutely. And sorry.
Oh, is the fear that if Trump becomes president, he's gonna make America like a militocracy? Is he's gonna make it totalitarian? Because they're using the FBI to kick down doors right now. Like, what are they afraid is gonna happen?
I mean, they're afraid someone's gonna kick their door down.
Yeah, they're afraid.
We're both from New York. We're both, so we both know.
It's the Northeast over here.
Right.
What is happening with the editing? Oh my God.
Believes, and I used to believe a lot of this. I really.
It's like someone going like this. Oh, this is a great show. Oh, yeah, all right. Getting paid to be an editor is awesome.
We did, because they lie to us. Legacy media lies to us, and liberal media lies to us. I'm not saying the right is perfect or doesn't distort, but these are the kinds of things the left.
What do they all think the FBI has been doing for fucking decades? What do they think they've been doing? To civil rights activists, to civil rights leaders, to Black Americans, Indigenous Americans, Hispanic Americans, to people who are socialists, to people who are leftists, to people who are communists, to people who are LGBTQ+. What has the FBI been doing? The left is not like, well, maybe that'll start soon. You know, we might as well get rid of Trump, because if we don't get rid of Trump, he'll make that happen to the rest of us.
Truly believes that if Trump...
Yeah, the FBI raided a Black socialist group like a week before the Trump raid.
Trump were elected, or there was another right wing, or
the only thing that's going on now is it happened to affect the right because a rich billionaire, by the way, happened to steal some allegedly potential sensitive nuclear information from the United States, and the US government wanted it back. They asked him, by the way, to return it before doing all this, because I'm sure they didn't want to undergo this process because they knew what a firestorm it was going to ignite, and he was like, nah. So it's like, okay, well, we have to get that back.
Conservative president. It would be like Margaret Atwood's
Handmaid's
Tale for women.
The one reference we can't get over as a society.
Right.
Harry Potter.
Right.
Yeah,
and
Harry Potter. Wait, what? Do you understand why people reference The Handmaid's Tale? Did you think just because it's a work of fiction? Is that just in general? Do you just say anything? Lord of the Rings. We do live in a Lord of the Rings these days, you know? The one ring of power kind of seems like Biden is trying to get the one ring of power to assume total... What are you talking about?
That that every conservative is racist, every conservative is homophobic, and that it would be kind of a Bible-based reactionary America in which religious minorities would be quashed, in which there would be...
It's not religious minorities the Christian nationalists are going after. Well, I mean, eventually maybe, but in terms of what they're doing right now, it seems to be decidedly against women, trans people, gay people, you name it, black people, indigenous people. That seems to be what they're targeting.
No freedom to love. There would be a fossil fuel orgy leading to the demise of the planet in a matter of weeks. Is this fair? I mean, is there more you want to add? That women would be forced to conceive and raise children, you know, that they didn't want or that they couldn't.
What the fuck do you think is happening? Where do you get your news? What world do you live in? That's happening right now. To kids, by the way. Like, we just read a story about a 16-year-old who's being forced to give birth against her will because apparently she's not mature enough to make the decision to have an abortion. That's happening right now, live in 4K.
And you know, there's some truth to these concerns, but in a functioning civil society, you talk these things out and you create policies that meet it.
Yeah, because that's working out great. Because I think the majority of Americans don't agree with what's happening. The overwhelming majority. Well, I shouldn't say overwhelming. I think, what is it now? 58% of Americans think that women should have control over their own bodily autonomy.
In the middle.
I don't believe them, because in any they may actually have broken worldviews that I can believe, but this idea that the right is simultaneously advancing fascism while trying to give you guns makes no sense. Go like, quick, everybody have any gun. I argued that the Second Amendment does cover nuclear weapons. Not that it should cover nuclear weapons. Whoa. But during the time of the Founding Fathers, you could have a privateer, you could have a frigate, you could have grape shot, you could have full, a plethora of cannons. The same armaments the government had. That never changed.
That basically shows you the breadth of knowledge that Tim Pool has on fascism. As if like, well, I mean, on the one end, they want people to have guns, so no way this makes sense.
So my point was, perhaps people would agree you should not.
Jeff Waldorf with a really good point. Bro, Hitler used brown shirts, which were armed vigilantes. Yep. What do you think, all the 3%ers and the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys, whose side do you think they're all on? Because I can tell you, we have evidence of that now. Just look at January 6th and the attempted coup. Whose side are they on? And they're all heavily trained and heavily armed. Interesting that.
Allow this, and we would need to make that amendment. They all got really angry that I would bring it up. My point here is...
Why were they angry, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, they called me like a wingnut arguing that people should have nuclear weapons.
Misinterpret it. Because it sounds terrifying.
They didn't misinterpret it. Media Matters cut my quote off.
You said people should have nuclear weapons according to the Second Amendment. They thought he meant, I think morally people should have nuclear weapons. Where he was saying, no, legally, according to the rule right now, people should be able to.
But just my point right now is, I'll tell you a story. I was in Berkeley during the battle for Berkeley when all the Antifa were fighting the Trump supporters. And I actually got to talk to an Antifa guy after everything was calming down, because I was just standing there like, And this guy said, I asked this Antifa guy, like, what happened? Mm-hmm. And he said they came up and they punched my friend. And then we started talking, and he told me that he brought a knife, that he was going to defend himself. And then he said, and I asked him why, and he said, because these are fascists, man. They want to kill people. And I said, you think all of those people in that park are fascists right there? And he's like, yeah, dude, they're all fascists. Mm-hmm. And I said, do you think that those people in that park want to defend the Second Amendment? And he was like, well, yeah, of course. The right always talking about guns. And I was like, do you think that they would then care if you had guns? Like, no. I'm like, so you think they're fascists, but they want you to have guns.
Right.
And he was like, And I'm like, yeah, I don't get your logic. There's no logic there. It's just tribalism.
Right. It is, but also a horrible
thing
explains
so much
in the last 10 or 15 years in America, in which these two groups never get to talk to each other. And I think social media has really escalated that, because
it's people saying this conversation never happened. The response was not, the response was, sir, this is a Wendy's. That's like, I need your order. You're at the drive-through window.
The algorithm makes sure that you only,
you're fed further and further to one side of the spectrum or the other.
Right.
There is a way, like you can see a YouTube video with someone you don't agree with. Back in the day, you could make a video response, and we had incredible conversations in 2007.
Okay, just olive branch to who's ever the producer on this show. Wait until someone starts speaking. If people are just like, you don't need to cut between their two heads for every 2 seconds of audio. You can just cut to the person who looks like they're about to start speaking. If they're being interrupted, you then cut to the other person. You don't have to just do this like weird jump cuts to everyone.
7. But Google's taken away the video response mechanic for oddly, but
wow.
But I want to respond. I mean, the meme is that Ben Shapiro is screaming, "Debate me." Like people on the right are adamantly saying, "Come have the conversation." I mean, we had Larry.
We saw yesterday Dennis Prager, who does the same thing, by the way. He does the entire like, the left doesn't want debate. None of them want to debate me. And then all of a sudden Sam Seder's like, hey, I'm literally on the line right now. Can we do this? And then he's like, click. That man said I was married 3 times. I was divorced twice, married 3 times.
Elder on this show, and he was talking about how he's invited all of these people and they won't come and talk to him.
By the way, like Ben Burgess has been adding Ben Shapiro for a debate for a long ass time. It's one of the covers of his books, you know, is the actual like person doing the shush to Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro has not accepted. Ben Shapiro seldomly does these little debates if he's not doing college campus ones, which he loves because he can control the whole thing, but he still gets called out and fucking served sometimes with people with no media experience. But for the most part, it's what? Anna Kasparian, Cenk. That's about the only 2 big Ben Shapiro debates I can think of in recent time.
We talked about this on the way up, Tim. I run into this as an editor of Daily Cloud, and it breaks my heart. We on the left, or we liberals, I'll say, we're supposed to be the ones who believe in free speech. Remember the free speech movement in Berkeley? Yep. That was led by the left. Mario Savio was on the left. We're supposed to believe in, not believe in censorship. Allen Ginsberg, like Lady Chatterley's Lover, these are liberals. But now I'll have people will send me right-leaning op-eds, and I'll reach out to all of my remaining liberal contacts, or just put out the word. We go to NARAL and say, will you please tell us why this pro-life op-ed is wrong, write your own op-ed, and they won't do it. Or we'll go to the green advocates and say, tell us why this pro-fossil fuel op-ed is wrong, and they won't do it. They'll just say, you shouldn't run that material. I'm not going to appear in a document where other people who hold these views appear.
I'll give a shout out to Jacobin. Are you familiar with Jacobin magazine?
I am.
They're pro-free speech.
Weird.
Good for them.
I've consistently seen articles from them where they say outright we should not tolerate the censorship and things like that. And I'm like, hey man, look, I don't got to agree with the socialist. If we agree on respecting each other's right to speak, then I'll take what I can get. Right now, you've got, following the FBI raids, a bunch of MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I guess she's selling merch. I'm not entirely sure, but it says like defund the FBI. Mm-hmm. Crowder has called for something similar. The Washington Post ran a story saying the right now wants to defund law enforcement, and leftists are laughing. And I'm like, bro, this was your position. Shouldn't you be cheering? Mm-hmm. Shouldn't you be like, we're winning? Yeah. What happened? What happened is.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, some are, Tim. You got the clown shoes left. They're definitely doing that right now. It's weird because like you wouldn't want to align with a fascist just because they were trying to get to the end for different reasons, because they're not getting there to erode state power. They're getting there to control it in totality. That's what they want to do. They're very clear on that. They want Trump to get in there to fire every single person who works in those branches and to load it up with Republicans and get complete right-wing control of those institutions. They're very clear about their goals and aspirations. I mean, the left, and most of them, are smart enough to see through that and realize that for people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, the fact that she's actually selling this as merch, that should tell you everything you need to know about this. Same with Crowder. Crowder's doing the fight like hell thing. Like, we take our country back. Here's the promo code for fight like hell.
That their opponents are getting the punishment.
They're laughing at the hypocrisy.
Another problem is that like censorship's important in the right context. You don't want to allow people to make imminent threats of violence. It's illegal under the First Amendment.
It's already illegal.
Yeah, and it's illegal as a form of censorship.
Right.
And pictures of children.
Yeah, stuff like that. You censor that stuff. But corporations now are in.
That was actually pretty funny. They had to correct him in real time. And then I guess Tim Pool was trying to cut that one off at the impasse right before it went down. So like, and we're not for child porn, right? Yeah, no. Okay. So there is limits to free speech. Yeah. No child porn, no direct calls for violence. Those 2 things. But yeah, okay. So I guess there are some limits.
Control the public square with Alphabet and Meta and things like that, where they can more or less terminate your access to the masses. Mm-hmm. And the law has yet to catch up to that. I don't think that private companies should be overriding the First Amendment in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So I advocate that we free the software code of large social networks so that
It's like, is he going to talk about breaking up big tech? Is he going to talk about making them public utilities? Any of this kind of stuff? Then he's free the code. Let everyone have the code so we can make 1 million Googles, 1 million Twitters. Then we'll see.
People can spin up networks that can interoperate with them, and it will free
seize the means of production.
Free the means of production.
Thanks for checking out this.
Hey, don't get me wrong. I mean, hey, I'm all for open source. I love open source. I think it's incredibly based. I think everything should be open source. Oh, you might be asking, because I saw a handful of you saying, who's the guest? I'm not really familiar with this woman. That's Naomi Wolf, and I can tell you why she has some very strong feelings about censorship, because she has been 1984'd on Twitter. She's one of the biggest conspiracy theorists and one of the largest conspiracy theorist accounts that was talking about vaccines. You know, I read the Moderna website and the sources in my video about how the mRNA is not actually a vaccine, but a software platform. I actually work with developers who create software, so I understand how dangerous it is to have a tech in one's body that can receive uploads. Yeah, that Dr. Naomi Wolf. Yeah. Oh, it gets better. It gets so much better. Check this one out. This is probably one of Naomi Wolf's biggest classics. This quote, "If a vaccine is effective, then why do you need to pressure people to take it? Informed consent means letting parents make their own choices," says Dr. John Sims, MD. And she says, "Hello, Dr. Wolf. Huge fan of your work. Admire your outspokenness." Dr. John Sims. This is Johnny Sims, the porn star. The dude with the big old penis who does the pornos. He's a sex worker. Yeah, but she posted it as fact. Yeah, so there's that. Is an American pornographic actor, director, and YouTuber noted for his shaved head and muscular physique. He is constantly amongst the most popular pornographic searches. Before she was banned, Naomi Wolf gave us the funniest tweet on Northern Ireland's history. "It was amazing to go to Belfast, which does not yet have 5G, and feel the earth, sky, air, human experience, feel the way it did in the 1970s. Calm, still, peaceful, restful, natural." Wow. I didn't know. I didn't know that about them. Well, amazing. Naomi Wolf was the first recorded person to be banned from Twitter for being too stupid after giving us such gems as the vaccines let you time travel, crying that a teddy bear might get a jab, and worrying there might be vaccinated people's urine in the sewage he drinks. Oh, I forgot what amazing content she was. Terrifying. Also confirms/explains the conversation I overheard in a restaurant in Manhattan 2 years ago in which an Apple employee was boasting about attending a top secret demo. They had a new tech to deliver vaccines with nanoparticles that let you travel back in time. Not kidding. Today I helped out the Leamington Spa Vaccination Center as an NHS volunteer steward. No! No! It seems urgent for public health to separate vaccinated people's urine and feces from the general sewage supplies and waterways till studies are done of how mRNA in sewage drinking water will affect all. The ad campaign tried to make unvaccinated toxic to others, but maybe the reverse is true. I'm going to be honest, all right? I think people spreading medical misinformation for a living, especially a verified member of Twitter, can have some very dangerous consequences. But Naomi Wolf was so goddamn funny that we should reinstate her account. It just needs to have a disclaimer at the top that this person is entirely unserious, is a clown, and we're just letting this account remain for comedic purposes. And just have that as a disclaimer on top and below every single tweet. There you go. You know? Something like that. Did you think that, like, when you drink tap water, it's filled with urine and feces? Like, what do you think processing plants do? We would have a very sick populace if that was the case. But all right, interesting. I mean, you laugh, but Alex Jones started just like this. Yeah, and like, of course, Tim Pool, which I'm sure he did an incredible amount of vetting before bringing her on the show, is completely fine being like, oh, we have a doctor coming on the show. Not entirely sure what she's a doctor of, but she's apparently been censored for some unorthodox takes on vaccines because she's not wanting to be a part of this kind of regime of vaccine dictatorships. Well, then, yes, let's put her on the show. Let's hear what she has to say about being a former leftist and why she was excised from the left.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, We shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel Kay, Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojak, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.